All right, Mr. Brian.
What's up, dude?
Not too much. It's first time getting to interview you, which is cool. I
Yeah.
know you've ripped a pod with Presley, so I'm excited to chop it up with you and get to know you a little bit more. Currently in Miami, Florida.
You just got back, bro, from a trip. Crazy trip. We were just talking about it.
Yeah, just got back from Dubai and Switzerland, which was
Yeah.
my first time in the Eastern Hemisphere. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Really cool experience. Definitely I think, I wasn't necessarily going into it with the mindset of I'm going to, experience a new culture and it's going to change me. I didn't really think that it was going to do that, but it did. And for the better, for sure. So it wasn't super dramatic, but I think you just pick up on some smaller things that it's just how different cultures operate, how different systems operate. And Dubai is not too different from Miami. So there's a lot of similarities there, but it really opened my eyes to, it's a whole new world over there, really. So just how different culture functions and operates. And, there's, in my opinion, there's a lot more discipline in the people in Dubai. So it was really motivating and really inspirational for me. And I'm excited to put it into practice. But I want to talk a little bit about your, upcoming travels.
Yeah.
I think that's a cool topic to touch on because I know for us, sometimes we can take it for granted because we can just travel and we can do our work from anywhere. And I didn't really realize it until I posted a video and everyone started blowing up my comments. And I was like, oh shoot, this is not normal. Because for me, it's I'm just, instead of at a coffee shop in Miami doing work, I'm just at a coffee shop in Dubai doing work.
Yeah.
But to most people, that's crazy. But for me, it was just I'm just doing work in a coffee shop, 8 hours time difference. So tell me a little bit about, honestly, I know for me it can be reset of just a different environment. So talk about for yourself how a new environment impacts your work. Does it impact your work?
Yeah.
Is it better? Is it worse?
Yeah. Yeah, because we were just talking about before we started recording, right? So I've had a crazy last 2 weeks, specifically with my living situation. So on Friday, I'm going to Mexico City for a week for vacation with my wife. And then after that, we're going to come back to Miami for a day, watch the UFC fights, Miami, and then, Izzy versus Alex Pereira again, Jorge Masvidal versus Gilbert Burns. Big UFC card. I'm excited for that. And then we're going to go to Colombia for 90 days. But before that, the last 2 weeks have been crazy because we've been living in Miami for a year and 2 or 3 months. And what happened was we got back from Arizona after a funeral, and my allergies started flaring up, right? And it turns out that we were actually exposed to a little bit of mold in our apartment. And so we actually had to pack up all that stuff that night because I couldn't live there after experiencing that and just having that kind of allergy reaction. And so we ended up moving back with my parents who live up in North Hollywood, packed all our stuff, moved back with them. And for the last 2 weeks, I've been kind of in a different environment, like you're asking, but it hasn't been the environment that I've chosen. It was just kind of what we had to do until we moved because I didn't want to live in a apartment that was mold with exposed mold for another 2 weeks. And so even just this current 2 weeks that we're experiencing right now before we leave to Colombia has been, a total game changer because I've been waking up actually earlier on the beach because my parents live on the beach. They have an apartment, a condo that they rent out right in Hollywood. And so I wake up at 4 o'clock, write my, content for the 3 hours, just deep work, undistracted. The sun's rising as I'm overlooking the beach, and it's been beautiful. And then I go work from the hotel after working out, downstairs right across the street. So that's been sick. And then, we're going to go to Colombia for 90 days. And so I'm going to have to adapt to that environment as well. But honestly, let me ask you, when you were traveling and doing work, did you feel like you weren't getting any work done? Or did you feel like you couldn't get any work done because you were traveling and you weren't in your office?
So for me, I have a really hard time just doing work in my apartment. I need to be somewhere different. I need a change of environment. So for me, I really liked it. Initially, it was tough because of the time zone difference and the sleep.
Adjusting to that.
Yeah, so after I got a little more adjusted with sleep, I think you can probably attest to this, and I want to hear a little bit more about it from you. But Dubai's 8 hours difference. So the time zone is just when even getting up at 9, 10 a.m., everyone in the U.S. is sleeping. So there's zero distractions from that. I mean, obviously you do have, it's a little easy to get distracted in Dubai when it's your first time and there's everything there.
Yeah, go experience it, go explore.
Exactly. So I would what I would do is I would be a little strategic with it. I would work in the mornings, and then in the evenings when I knew that everyone would be, active on social or, texting me and stuff, that's when I would go like do stuff so that, maybe I'm touring something and then I get a text I can reply and I'm not getting distracted. But tell me a little bit more about like your deep work in the morning, because that's something that I was like, I like kind of whatever, but having that distraction-free time, that's a really big realization for me that I came to while in Dubai, is like you just need that time in a day to just get through tasks and like knock stuff out distraction-free, because you can get so much more done without distraction. So tell me a little bit about, like, you said you wake up at 4 a.m. because I remember when I was in Dubai, 8 hours difference, like you would be the only one texting me. I was like, this is like, what time is it? It's like 4 a.m. there, which was perfect because, like, again, like, you're a client of ours, so it's like distraction free, just like knocking stuff out, which was great. But tell me a little bit about like your kind of deep work in the morning and how that has impacted your business, really.
Yeah. So it's funny, man. Like, I have been always someone who wants to wake up early from the very beginning, because I like to work out first thing in the morning, first of all. But I'm always trying to optimize my routine, which is hilarious because I'm naturally a creative person. So the more I have a strict, rigid routine, the more I become like actually like crazy because I want to get out of it. But what I've been doing is waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and just writing, because like you said, no one's awake. There's no distractions. There's no one on social media. Nobody texting me. My team's not up. So I just have been writing content. And that's when I get honestly the best ideas anyways, because no one's distracting me. I'm just on my computer, just taking time to write. And I do 3 hours of just whatever it takes to get it done. And so the cool part about that is too, if you can set up the mornings to just do that, right? I found that obviously you can schedule it, have all your content ready for the rest of the day. And then my days always, because the problem I had, dude, before was I was trying to film and like write content during the day, right?
That's tough.
But I have meetings, I have calls, I have
lots of distractions, not
whatever else happens during the day, right?
Yeah.
And what I've realized was, okay, I've kind of stumbled across this sweet spot after trying to testing it for like the last few years. Okay, 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock deep work, right? Work out from 7 to 8:30, and then, or 9, let's say, breakfast, whatever, and then my team meetings at 10 o'clock in the morning anyways. So I'm like 6 hours now. I've hit my workout, written my content, sauna'd, and then now I'm ready for like the actual work day.
For sure.
Does that make sense?
For sure. And I think, for me, it was the same way. It's like, I am like, I've noticed for myself, I'm most creative in the morning, and then I'm more prone to like late at night once everyone's gone to bed. I like plow through just like meaningless tasks. Not like meaningless, but like just like lame, like boring tasks. But that creative time in the morning is something that I would skip out, and like I didn't really realize the importance of, because I hadn't really experienced the full benefits of it. Is that something that you, the night before, you plan out your mornings? Yeah. What does that look like?
Yeah, so actually it's funny. I had a one-on-one with someone who's in our admin mastermind. He was having a similar problem because he just wasn't getting as much work done as he feels like he should have. And I was like, show me your war map. And the war map is what Sam Ovens made, basically the gold standard of planning out your schedule. It's a Google sheet that looks like a calendar with all your months in one tab. Then it has each January, February, March in like different tabs, right? So, and there's 5 like slots to fill in for each day during that month. And so every single time before I go to bed, I fill out my war map for the next day. And then I take what's on my war map and I plot it onto my Google Calendar. So before I go to bed, I already know what I'm doing the next day. And so alarm goes off at 4 o'clock in the morning. I know 4 to 7 o'clock's deep work writing. And for me specifically, that's writing Twitter content, emails, or starting some sort of script. But what I've also realized is, you can't try to write too many things at once. So I only just try to write one great piece of content for the day, and that turns into the rest of my content for the week, funny enough.
100%.
And so, I have to plot my day the night before. That's the easiest thing you can do to get ahead, especially when you're scheduling. I mean, it's so simple, right? But it's like those simple things that are also simple not to do.
Yeah.
And because then you wake up in the morning, dude, and you don't have anything you're supposed to be doing because you didn't plan out the night before. You feel rushed. You're already stressed out because you're like, fuck, I didn't plan out my day the night before.
And you're like, what do I do?
Yeah, what do I do? And then you already know what you need to do, but then you kind of try to avoid doing it because you didn't plan it out the night before.
And it's not set in stone.
It's not set in stone, yeah. So there is a bliss that comes from having a routine and a schedule. And so right now, Monday through Friday, it's like 4 to 7, deep work, writing, right? 7 to 8:30, 9, working out, sauna, shower. 9 to 10, get prepared for the meeting. 10 o'clock meeting, and then 10 to 5 o'clock is usually just working with my team on client projects or marketing, whatever.
For sure. That's what I found as well, is like, I think I went through like a period of probably 2 or 3 months where I did not have like a clear plan for what I needed to do the next day. And when you don't have that clear plan, it's also like, why get up early? Because you don't have that plan.
Yeah, you're just waking up early and you're like, okay, I'm up early.
It's like, I know I have to do stuff, but I don't know, like, I didn't put a time schedule on what I need to do. And that's something that I like really hit me while I was abroad, because it's like, okay, I have, it wasn't even the morning really. It's just like, I have the whole first part of the day that was distraction free. I was like, I really like, it hit me. I was like, man, like, what am I doing with my time when I have no distractions? Because I hadn't experienced that, because like I would usually work late when I was, used to this time zone. And then I would like get up like when everyone else is getting up. Like I'd probably get up at like 8 a.m. So like, I mean, it's not late, but it's not early. 8:30. And like, initially, met with stock market opening. So like that was like first priority. So when I'm actually like getting to stuff other than that, outside of that, it's like 10:30, 11 a.m. And that's when everyone else is active online and whatnot. So it was, it was really a breath of fresh air just having that difference. And now that my sleep schedule is thoroughly messed up right now, I'm going to...
You're going to crash like soon, but...
I'm going to crash soon, but I'm also going to take it as an opportunity to reset what I should have and 100%. What I need here. Because I realized like my output, how much different it was. I think I really noticed it when I went to Switzerland, because Dubai was 8 hours ahead.
Wow.
And then Switzerland's 5 hours. So I was in Dubai for a week, and my body was acclimating to that. And then I moved back 3 hours, and my body was like, oh, you're in a sweet spot. So I was getting up like 8 a.m., which is 5 hours earlier here. So 8 was 3 a.m. in the U.S. Eastern time zone. And that's when I was like, I woke up. I was like, I know exactly what I need to do. I was also with Jeremy. So like Jeremy had stuff he needed to do. So it was like kind of no other option than to get work done. And it was just ultra productive, hyper focused time.
Yeah, I think there's a hack when it comes to like time zones. Like you're just saying with Dubai, right? When they're up, we're asleep. When we're up, they're asleep. And it gives you an unfair advantage. And that's why I love EST time zone so much, specifically living in Miami. I first experienced that when I was living in Arizona. Because Arizona is one of those states where it doesn't change clocks ever. Everyone else adapts, right? They change, or they move it forward, they move it back, whatever.
There's no spring forward, fall back?
No, Arizona is the same.
dope.
It's pretty sick, right? It's the West Coast, though, so you're always the last one up, right? And I didn't really understand that because I've always lived on sort of Central or West Coast time. And then when I moved here, well, actually, I first experienced it going to Colombia for the first time for vacation for a month. I was waking up 3 hours earlier, right? Because it's EST time zone. Colombia is the same as EST. So I was like, holy shit, this is pretty sick, because I get to wake up, no one's distracting me, and then I get to do work. And then by the time my team's up and we're on the meeting, it's like, dude, I already got 3 hours worth of work done.
So
I feel good. And that's how, obviously, what prompted us to move here too.
100%.
Besides other things, taxes and just freedom in general.
Exactly.
But I would imagine it's probably just in Dubai on steroids too. So,
for sure.
So yeah, it's EST time zone, waking up in the morning, but of course making sure you have your day planned the night before, because otherwise you're just waking up just to feel good. And then, but it takes time too. Like you can't just have, I think everyone's constantly trying to optimize their morning routine too, right?
Yeah.
But it takes testing and really just testing.
For sure. And I think with that like morning routine, like it's important, but I think a lot of people put too much into it.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm still figuring out what that's going to be for myself. I think it's going to look something along the lines of like, now that I have this time to reset, I'm going to, it's either going to be 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. I'm not sure what it's going to be. I have to figure out there's the stuff that I want to do and the stuff that I need to do. And I need to find the balance between both. Like for me, it's like, I need to have a time in the morning to do a devotion. And because that's just the only time that I'm distraction free. Like prayer and meditation, that has to happen in the morning for me because it's just not going to happen throughout the day. And, that is important for me to do every day. And if I miss it, then it's just like, it feels like a step back and I need to be taking that step forward. It's not like, if I miss a day, it's not like, oh, I'm just like, I'm not moving forward or backward. It's either I'm moving backward or I'm moving forward. So, for me, it's like, I've realized the importance of that pocket of time in the morning, and it's like, okay, there's like 3 things that I want to knock out in the morning and like be ultra optimized for, and it's not even really work for me. I think it's just that time of creativity and focusing on your body.
Yeah, it's like one of those things that, you know, you just keep putting off or don't have time to do, or just for whatever reason get distracted and don't do during the day. Like those are probably the things you should schedule in the morning for that deep work time, right? Whether it's prayer, meditation, journaling, reading, all of those, right? That's, who cares? Like people say, oh, morning routines are bullshit. Like, let me just get right into work. And like, to be fair, I'm doing that right now. I'm not doing any of the things I just mentioned, but I'm just writing. But it's like, dude, okay, I'm also not reading. I'm also not journaling.
But that's biggest needle moving thing that you're doing.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's like, to me, that is my highest ROI activity for myself.
And I think that's what your morning routine should be. It should be, what is the biggest needle moving opportunity?
Yeah.
So for me, right, it's I'm trading and I have a content business that requires me to be creative.
Yep.
Okay, so what is the highest ROI activity that I can do in the morning? Well, it's focusing on what is going to help me be disciplined, relax, and like
get your mind right.
Correct. What it needs to be is focusing on my mind and focusing on my body, because that's what's going to optimize me for the rest of the day.
Yeah, and again, I'm doing that after I write.
Yeah.
After. So I'm going to the gym, which is I'm creating endorphins from getting a workout in, right? Building muscle, making sure I'm staying disciplined. And then I'm hitting the sauna, which then again detoxes my body, makes me feel good. So like, and I'm also meditating in the sauna. So it's like, I'm still doing it. I'm just doing it differently. And again, it comes back to optimizing for you and what makes the most sense for you. Is it before or is it after, right?
Yeah. So how much of an impact, I have a cool story about this too, that really just like, caught me off guard, but in the best way. How much of an impact has journaling and writing had on your life?
Well, dude, I mean, I have 8 journals that I've been using. I have 8 journals since I was 18 years old. So one pretty much every single year minus like 1 or 2 years. And just the impact of being able to read through those old journals back when I was that young and see like where I was at in that life, like my mindset, my awareness level of like, you know, money, you know, relationships, family, all of that. And then seeing like what my goals were at that time. Like, you know, one of my very first journals was, you know, I want every single, it wasn't even like I was writing anything deep. It was just, it's just a journal full of my, like my goals that I had. And it was just, I make $100,000 a year. I make $100,000 a year. Like that was the whole journal.
For sure.
But like being able to look back on that and be like, holy shit. Like, and then just even like my dreams and goals back then, it's been humbling, because at that point when I look back on it now, it's like, you weren't even thinking big enough, bro. Like, but you were.
Yeah.
Because at that time,
because it got you to where you wanted to be, and then where you wanted to be, then it was the next level. So it was like a step. Yeah.
And so fast forward to today, looking back on all of that, I'm still not as consistent as I need to be with my journal. I still don't journal every single day. I could sit here and lie and say I do that, but I don't. Yeah. So it's like, knowing that and just even talking about it right now is really helping me remember. It's like, yeah, well, you're not really journaling other than the sake of just being able to document how you feel during that day and really just vent. Because for me, honestly, this is a type of meditation right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Like speaking, sharing, talking to you about what we're doing. Like that's sort of a prayer, meditation, or journaling for me.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, going back to the writing thing in the morning, the deep work, that's kind of the same thing, because my creativity or my ideas for the day come from like, what do I want to talk about today? What do I want to share to the world today, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I need to be more disciplined with my journal.
Yeah, and 100% same here. I'm nowhere near where I want to be. I remember looking back in my journal, and I'm like, I say looking back in my journal, there's one page. And this was, I think now, roughly 2 years ago, I wrote one page. I told myself, I was like, I need to journal more. And I like wrote down.
It's the first page.
I wrote down everything that I was like going through and that I wanted to fix in my life and like basically where I was at. And then I stopped journaling.
Yeah.
But I went and looked back at it 18 months later, and some of the stuff was like, man, like I'm really unhappy where I'm at with the amount of alcohol that I'm consuming. And like, I didn't even realize, like looking back, that was something that I was unhappy with until like, cause like now I haven't had a sip of alcohol in almost a year and a half.
That's awesome.
And I look back in my journal, I was like, wow, like I was like, I don't want to drink. And I was like, this is something that's like bothering me. And now I'm without it. So it's like, I don't know if you would necessarily call that manifesting or something that I was like, I'm struggling with this, and I just like wrote it down, and then like just revisiting it. So it's like, wow, I was here, and this is where I am now. So it's like, same with like working out. You don't really see your progress unless you like document it.
Yeah.
And it's like same with your life. You're documenting your life so you can see your progress.
And I think journaling nowadays has like many different meanings, right? Because like I think about it even when I was hearing you speak just now. I was like, well, do I have to start journaling every single day again? Because it's like I could, right? But I'm kind of already doing that because I'm posting consistently.
For sure.
Of like what's going on in the business, my life.
Twitter's kind of like journaling.
Exactly, right? Twitter, YouTube videos, podcasts, whatever, emails, right?
Yeah.
I am journaling. It's just a different form, essentially, right?
For sure.
And you know what's funny, dude? Whenever I look back on my journals, like at least in the last 2 years, one of the biggest like pet peeves I have with myself when I'm journaling is always like, you gotta, I'm not sticking to my meditation, my journaling, or my waking up in the morning early, or like stuff like that, sauna, whatever. And it's like, those are the things that I like. It's almost like, for me, it's kind of interesting because it's like I keep writing them down as I'm not doing them because I want to do them, but then it's like, well, it's funny. The business is going like this, right? It's working. What I'm doing is working, but I just always have this like constant thought in the back of my head of like the things that I'm not doing to optimize myself. So it's just interesting. I don't know. I wanted to bring that up because what you said about the drinking, you're like, you didn't keep writing it down, but in the back of your head, you're like, I want to do this and stop doing this.
Yeah.
And then you ended up doing it.
Yeah. And then like, but I didn't, because it became my life, not drinking. I didn't like, of course you like think back like, oh, like I remember when I used to drink, but you don't remember your state of mind that you were in. So like when you journal your state of mind, then you go back and you look at it and it's like, wow, like I was there and now I'm here. Like this is the progress, and you can visualize the progress that you made, and you're like, wow, that's so cool. And then it like inspired me to write some more. And I'm not consistent. I actually don't remember the last time I've like journaled my life.
Yeah.
And that's something that there's like plenty of times I wanted to journal while I was in Dubai and Switzerland. And I didn't have a pen. So that was my excuse. I actually went looking for a pen. I was like, you know what? I want like a somewhat nice pen. I don't want like a cheap pen. I don't need like $1,000 pen, but I want something that's like somewhere within like $100. I just want a nice pen. And I like walked all around the mall looking at a whole bunch of different shops. Didn't find anything.
No, you didn't. So there wasn't a Mont Blanc? Well, that was like $1,000 probably bucks, right?
I went into a store and I was like, okay.
I got gifted a Mont Blanc, and I was
sick.
like, this is pretty sick. I didn't even know they sold $1,000 pen.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I was like, okay. And it was an AED, which is the currency over there. So it's like $3,000, which is it's 4 to 1. So it's like for $1 US, it's 4 AED. So it's like $3,000. I'm like, okay, $750 for a pen. I don't even write yet. I was like, when I get consistent.
Yeah, the pen's not going to help you start writing, bro.
Correct. I was like, when I am consistent and I am writing every day, then I'll treat myself to something like this.
Here's a funny story about this. So this is actually a perfect topic, and it aligns exactly what we're talking about right now. When I was working with Sam Ovens and we partnered on WeTube together, I was meeting with his team every single day for about, I want to say 2 or 3 months, when we were building the product, coming up with the content inside, how we're going to serve the customers, the clients. And so I was meeting with this team on a daily stand-up for about 30 minutes to an hour every single day. And this is when I was trying to get back to planning my days and everything, which is how, I spoke with so much conviction earlier about the war map to the guy who was saying, I feel like I'm not doing enough. It's because I was like, pull up your war map. Like, let me see what you're doing. And he's like, I don't have that. I'm not using it. Even though I tell him to use it in the mastermind, he wasn't using it. I was like, well, yeah, dude. So like, the reason I bring it up now is because back when I was with Sam, working with his team on this, I was going to buy the Remarkable. You know what the Remarkable is?
I want to get one.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if I should get
Well,
I want to start with a journal.
Let me explain the point. Yeah, so the Remarkable, if for those listening that don't know what this is, it's a basically digital journal planner.
But it looks like paper.
It writes like paper, looks like paper. You have a pen, a pencil, and it's actually cool because it doesn't have blue light. So that
it looks like paper.
And it looks like paper, so you're not hurting your eyes when you're doing it in the morning or when you're at night before you go to bed. It's cool. So like and plus, dude, their VSL on their webpage is nasty, dude.
Yeah.
It's so nasty. It's such a good sales video. And I was like, oh man, we got to get this. And then I'm sitting here thinking, I'm not organized. I need to get organized. I'm not using a war map. I'm not using my journal. I'm not even scheduling my days at this time. And like I'm working with Sam every single day, seeing how robotic he is, right? There's rumors that everyone says jokingly that he's a robot, and it's like I need to be more like this. How can I do that? Oh, the Remarkable is gonna save me. The Remarkable's once I buy the Remarkable, then I'll start planning out my days.
Yeah.
Then I'll have like once I have this, then I'll start doing the thing. And the reality is I bought it for me, my team, and we had them shipped out and everything. And then I was so excited about it. I got on the next team stand up with Sam and his team. And I was like, dude, have you seen The Remarkable? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, what do you think about it? He goes, it's cool. I'm like, would you ever use something like that? He's like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like a war map plus like a journal combined. And he's like, yeah, but I have a journal. And I have my war map.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And I was just trying to sell him on like why I'm going to use it, why it's going to be so much better. He's like, yeah, just use the war map.
Yeah.
Just use the journal.
I think that's what a lot of people try to do is they try to take something that's simple and should be simple, and this is not throwing any shade towards you because I've done the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like you just try to overcomplicate something that should not be complicated.
Yeah.
Like what is journaling? It's pen, paper. Maybe it's something on your phone, but you should like even that's complicating. It should be writing down your thoughts
in its
on
simplest
paper.
form. It was like, Brian, you need to plan your day the night before.
Yeah.
You need to have some sort of plan of what you need to do.
Yep.
Because at that time, to be fair, I was trying to figure out how to continue scaling my agency and then start a new business with Sam that was going to be a whole different type of actions. So it's double the amount of work. So it's like, how am I going to do all of this? And I was getting overwhelmed, and I was like, well, the only answer is to buy something that's going to help me become less overwhelmed instead of just sitting down, writing like you're saying.
How true is that, though, that like we keep trying to, this is everyone, right? They try to buy their way to, you know, the solution when the solution is usually never something that is a dollar amount too. Like, yes, sometimes it is, but you know, for like simple stuff like that, you're like, oh, like I'm here, I want to be here, and the bridge to where I want to be is a Remarkable tablet, or the bridge to where I want to be is protein powder, or the bridge to where I want to be is a gym membership. And it's like, yes and no. Like maybe it's like a piece, maybe it's the handrail on the bridge, right? Where it's helping you across, but it's not the bridge itself.
No.
It's not going to get you to where you want to be. It might make it more entertaining to get to where you want to be, or it might aid in getting you to where you want to be, but it's not where you want to be.
The funny part about this too is this is the same that can apply to like paying for coaches, paying for coaching programs, courses, mentors, masterminds. And it's like, I'm in this industry where we do that. We help clients sell those. We do this for ourselves, and we have masterminds, and we have an agency that serves this market. But it's like, at a certain point, you also have to think about that for yourself as a business owner. And yes, you always want to constantly be learning and growing, right? But there comes a time too, for me, I'm speaking to myself here, where you almost have to just say, I have enough to get to where I want to go next. I don't need to pay somebody else to tell me what I already need to do. Yeah. And some people do. You know,
I was gonna say I think I halfway disagree with that.
Some people do, right? It can, accountability wise, it can help you.
That's what I think.
Accountability wise, it can help you. But when you get to a point, specifically for me, where it's like I know what I need to do, I don't need anybody else to tell me what I need to do. I need to now hold myself accountable to my own word, to my own routine, to my own discipline, to my own habits to be able to get to my result. I know that somebody else is going to, because the problem is, dude, if you start paying somebody else, right, they're always going to come from a third perspective that's outside of what you know deep down that you should be doing truthfully, that's authentic to you. And they're going to put their own spin on what you want to do. And that might cloud your judgment a little bit. And it's not maliciously by any means.
Yeah.
It's just what
their point of view.
They're in a place of a coach at this point because you're paying them for their advice. They're going to tell you something. But sometimes you just need them to tell you, dude, you already know what you need to do.
For
you
sure.
got it, bro.
Yeah, like, and I think this was a really this was a realization I think that I had from either a video by Alex Hormozy or in his $100 million offer that I read, that, you know, the information, like, you can sell the information or you can just give the information out for free and sell the accountability. Because, like, the majority of people, and I saw this, I used to work for an info product company. We sold $2 to $3 million in courses, and probably 95 to 99% of people didn't do anything with it. So I took that and I ran with it in our business now, because we have the short form like content business, but I also have a trading business. And so I was like, why don't I just give all my information away for free? Because like So I do it in a mentorship so that people actually get through it because I want to see them succeed. So like we have an 80 to 90% success rate of people getting through the information. And that's what I'm saying is successful, not them applying it, but them getting through it.
Yeah.
And we do that for basically free or pennies on the dollar, because I want people to have skin in the game so that they're invested into it.
Yeah, because you got to pay attention, obviously.
Correct.
You can't just be totally free.
But that is basically given away for free. So like what other people are charging thousands for, we're giving away for free. But then we charge thousands for the accountability. And I get on the call with them. I'm like, look, you know exactly what you need to do. The problem is you're not going to do it. And, you're not going to, in trading especially, because trading is just a battle on your mind. Yeah. And so it's like, look, like, the rules that you need to do, but you're just going to keep breaking them. And so you need accountability.
Yeah.
So look, this is what we're going to do. Yes, we're going to continue to teach you and educate you, but that's not what you're here for.
Yeah.
You're here because you need someone to tell you every single day, stick to your rules, stay disciplined. You need someone to check in with you every day, and you're still going to break your rules, but you're going to have almost like that guilt, but it's a healthy guilt of someone checking in with you every single day. And you know that when you take a trade and you're breaking your rules, man, someone is going to check in with me today and I'm going to have to tell them, or you don't have to tell them, but that doesn't move you any closer to where you want to be.
Yeah.
I have to tell them I broke my rules today. And that feeling repetitively is enough to change.
Yeah, and they're also paying for a community too.
Correct.
It's like you get the accountability from the coach or the mentor in this case, right? But it's also like you also give them access to a community that they can't get for free when they're watching the content, because at the end of the day, like you said, they want the information, but the information's not the problem. It's the implementation of the information that's the problem for them. They're just not doing anything with the information, and so they're not getting the results. And so when you give them the ability to pay for the accountability, to pay for the coaching, to pay for the mentorship, to pay for the access to a community where they have everybody inside who's trying to achieve a similar goal, who's on the same journey and same path, struggling with the same problems, the same, lack of discipline, that's going to keep them on the same journey as everybody else so that everybody can get to the goal. And that's what makes it valuable, which is why you're saying, yes, give it away for free, charge for the implementation, because just like going back to that war map example of like Sam telling me, dude, why do you need the remarkable? And then me saying, yeah, you're right. And then funny enough, to finish that roundabout loop, once the remarkable arrived to the office and I unpackaged it and I started, I unboxed it, all of a sudden, like I had to plug it into my computer. I had to power it on and then sync some data and like transfer stuff. And I'm like, this is a fucking another computer, dude.
Yeah.
I didn't
I
want
wanted
another
a piece
computer.
of paper.
Why do I need this? I have a whole new computer.
Yeah.
It's like, so immediately that day I was like, no, I shipped it back after obviously Sam put that wisdom into my head and I realized I was overcomplicating things.
For sure.
And then moving forward, even back to where, the mastermind member was telling me like, sometimes I just need that accountability, bro. It's like, yeah, that's why you're paying access for the mastermind, because you need someone to just be like, yeah, dude, you know what you need to be doing. You just need to actually be disciplined about filling out this thing, and I guarantee you in 90 days from now, you won't have the same problems.
100%. And like back to that accountability, it's like it just makes it so much easier to sell a program too, because I get on the phone with people. I'm like, look, if you like basically, take advantage of the system that we're doing, which it's going to be hard not to, this is the last thing that you'll need, right? I'm like, look, you've gone around, you've bought courses and signals groups, and this is obviously for trading. I was like, look, obviously I can't guarantee that you're going to make money, but I can guarantee you this is the last program you will need in order to be profitable. Sure, there's a lot of other stuff you can learn, and I think you definitely should. You're going to learn from experience, go to other people, learn, but realize this is the last program that you're going to need if you take advantage of it to be profitable. You will have every single tool you need at your disposal here to be profitable, and I guarantee you that. And I'm so certain with this that if you jump in after the first 2 weeks, if you're like, oh, this isn't what I had hoped it'll be, I'll fully refund you. Because honestly, if you don't want to be here, I don't want you here.
Yeah.
And so like with that, you just like, it breaks down so many just objections, and you're building trust with the person, because it's like, look, like I want you to be here. I want you to be here because I'm going to hold you accountable to what you're signing up for.
And you also don't want people to be there that aren't going to be actually sticking to their word and doing the work, because then it looks bad on you, but not really, because it's like, that's why you got to be very specific about who you let in, and that's why you're even willing to give them a refund if they tried and they don't do it, because it's like, yeah, I don't want you here.
Yeah, I only want winners in the group.
I only want winners in the group, and that comes back to the community part, which I think is a big emphasis for me this year as well, and it sounds like it is for you, which is amazing too, because that's what people are now realizing, right? Like what we're talking about here is not the information, it's the implementation. And how do you get someone the results? Well, it's not just giving them the information anymore, right? That's all free on YouTube nowadays, and should be, really, because again, it comes back to action. Are they actually going to do the actions, right?
Correct.
And then when you charge for a program, a mastermind, a course, or a coaching program, you have to be so diligent about the community and the actual clear path to revenue for them, which means holding them accountable, and more about, like, I don't want to say babysit. Like, I'm very clear on the phones with people that want to join the mastermind. Like, this is not a typical course or coaching program that's all focused on long, boring content that you have to consume at your own disclosure, or me holding your hand and pestering you to get on the call or check in with you and like make sure you're doing the work. It's like, dude, if you don't do the work, that's your problem.
Yeah.
You're joining the mastermind to be a part of this so that you can be around us who are already doing this and where you want to be, you know, essentially motivated to do the work yourself.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to hold your hand. So like, if you're joining for me to sit here and like hold your hand through this whole thing to get better results for your clients or other people's businesses, this is not the mastermind for you. This mastermind is specifically for admin who want to take action and join a group of other people just like them that are all scaling their businesses.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think it's very important that you make that clear with the conviction on the sales call too.
100%. And I think, you know, like you were saying earlier, I think most people don't necessarily need coaches for the information. I think if you're getting started, having a coach is a great fast track. I think it's a lot better than a course.
Pay for speed.
Because you're going to learn even faster. Yeah, it's usually 10x the price, but you're going to get to your destination. Like, there's 10x the chance that you'll get there, and if it's the right coach, and you'll probably get there 10 times as fast as a course because you can ask questions and you know, and everything there. But I think a coach is good for a lot of people because of the accountability. Obviously, you have to make sure it's the right coach, but I think accountability is a huge lacking thing, especially in our society just these days now. I think there was a lot more accountability in the past, but now it's so easy to kind of just like slide by and not have that accountability. So I think that most people should pay for a coach, not even for the information because they have everything they need realistically, but pay for the coach if they're going to keep you accountable, because, you know, at that point, yeah, you're not really paying for the information. You're paying for the coach to be like, do this, do that. And I think that's very valuable for some people, for sure.
Yeah, 100%, right? It's like, if I look back on just even my personal experience, right? Like, I've had plenty. I have had a personal trainer before. I've had, you know, I have coaches in every area of my life, right? Like, whether they're books, whether they're actual physical coaches. But yeah, having that accountability is so huge, because then again, what you said earlier is so true. It's like, man, you don't want to, if you have a coach and you're paying them and you want to get the result, and you've told them all your deepest desires, your goals, your dreams, your wants, what's keeping you stuck as well. They know all that, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to hold you accountable, and they're going to point that out. Like, well, dude, you said you wanted this.
Yeah.
What you're doing isn't showing up as the person who's going to be able to achieve this. And then you have to show up to them and explain to them some BS excuse of why you couldn't get it done.
Exactly.
And that doesn't feel good.
Yeah. It's like, it really, like, with the, like, I think the value in accountability is, like, one, you have to want it. Yeah. Right. That's the first thing. Like, you have to go to someone and literally say, I want to be held accountable, because like naturally no one's going to want to do it, because it requires a hard conversation either way. It's either going to be a hard conversation of like, look, like, you told me to hold you accountable to this, so I'm going to do it. So either I'm going to have the hard conversation with you after you have asked for it, or like, you know, you're going to have the hard conversation with me of like, look, like, I wanted to do this, but I just didn't do it. So for me, a quick story on this is like, I was really slacking in my trade journaling. I just wasn't doing it. And that's one of the things where it's like, what gets measured gets fixed. So I was very stagnant in my trading. It wasn't really making money, wasn't really losing money. It was just like, one day I'd make it, next day I'd lose it. One day I'd make it, next day I'd lose it. And it was really back and forth. And so I was going to do a podcast with Umar Ashraf in Dubai, who's a trader that I've looked up to for the last couple of years. He's been trading for 10 years. He's made over $10 million strictly from the markets, which is just crazy. And he was like, you know, just talking to me. He's like, you know, how's your trading? Like, where you at? I was like, I'm just not quite where I want to be. He's like, do you journal your trades? I was like, no. And like, it's like one of those things where it's like, you could say like, yeah, like I do, but it's like, what is that going to achieve? Nothing. Yeah. So I was like, no, I don't. He's like, why? And it's just like, obviously that's like a hard question to ask, to just be like, yo, do you journal your trade? Like, realistically, as like asking another trader, like, and then them being honest, like, it's a hard question and answer. Yeah. So I was like, dang, like, it really just like hit me. I was like, no, I don't. And he's like, yeah, I have TradeZella, which is his trade journaling software. He's like, I'm not even saying this because I own TradeZella. Like, I don't care. Go do it in Google Sheets. Go do it in, like, notes. Like, you have TradeZella. Use Trade. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not saying this to get you to stay in TradeZella or use TradeZella. He's like, how are you going to know, like, where your mistakes are and everything? I was like, no, you're 100% right. Like, I have not had anyone to call me out on that. And, that's where I really realized, I was like, dang, like, I really need to make sure that I'm constantly in that environment of people that are just going to call me out on stuff. Like, and it's a choice because it hurts to get called out on that, and temporarily, but it also moves you to where you actually want to be.
Yeah.
And so, it takes effort to put yourself in that environment, to be around people that are going to call you out on your shortcomings.
And I think that's what separates the people that actually get to where they want to go versus don't, right? Like, you have to have that skin in the game by, being around people that are just like you, who want a similar goal, but also the awareness to drop your ego for a second in that moment and say, yeah, no, you're right. I haven't been disciplined in my word. And rather than reacting negatively and getting emotional and trying to feel like you're being attacked, right? Because that's not really what the person, in this case, he was trying to do to you. He was just asking you a simple question. Do you journal your trades?
Yeah.
And you said no. And you could have lied, like you said, but you didn't, because you knew that's what you probably should have been doing the whole time. And that's the reason why you don't have the results. So and that's what's, again, going back to what separates people that get the results. It's like, yeah, you're just not doing the work that you need to do to get to where you want to go. And if you're getting upset that someone's calling you out on it, well, you got to look in the mirror, man.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
You got to look in the mirror, because when you're getting upset at that person, you're pointing a finger at them. Technically, they're pointing a finger at you, but it's justified because you're sharing why you aren't where you want to be.
Yeah.
And they're like asking you a simple question. They discover it, and then you're like, no, man, that's not true because I'm doing this. And then it's like, well, there's 3 fingers pointing right back at you. And then also, it's like, that type of mindset isn't going to be good for growth, because you got to be coachable. Going back to the whole coach thing, you have to be coachable. You have to be someone who's willing to improve, willing to be
and that
called out
comes
on
down
their
to
mistakes.
an ego and pride thing.
You got to drop the ego, and you got to say, okay, objectively, is this person trying to help me? Yes.
Exactly.
Is what they're saying true? Yes. Why? Because I haven't been doing the thing that I just admitted I wasn't doing. If I did this, would I get better results? Yes. So, do I have a reason to be mad right now? No. Only yes, at
myself. Exactly.
Yes.
And like, that was like, okay, he just called me out on my shortcoming, and it's like, okay, let me process this just for a second.
Yeah.
This guy just made probably more money in one-day trading than is in my trading account right now. So it's like, should I listen to like someone that I like? It carried so much more weight because it came from someone that I've looked up to and still continue to look up to for the past, since I've known him, 3 years. And I was like, just the fact that it came out of his mouth, and for someone, it's like, okay, it's not like I want to be you, but it's like, the success that you've had is like something that I aspire for.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, like, if he says anything, I'm listening, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, he said that, I'm like, boo, I'm listening. Whereas if it came from like a friend, I might be less prone to listen to it.
Well, what's funny about that is I was just in Tampa, Florida the other weekend, like maybe a month or 2 ago, and I was hanging out with one of my good friends, John Whiting, and we were having a conversation with another friend of mine who actually went with me to document the whole thing, and he was in between 2 different things, and he was trying to get focused on one thing and like really just put that energy all into one and like see the success that he's always visualized he could have. And it was interesting because that night we were having a conversation about just really just diving down into why the results weren't there, and there was some hostility because of the conversation and how essentially he was being called out on what he wasn't doing. And I was just like, man, this is why, like, you have to be able to drop the ego and really just think about who you're talking to right now in the situation and who's there. It's like 2 people, and again, it's like 2 people that have a improved lifestyle than you, essentially, right? That have a business that you want to have eventually, right?
For sure.
They're telling you things that are probably where you need the most work, but you're emotionally reacting to those because of some place of insecurity or something that's causing you to just not realize that, okay, we're trying to come from a place of helping, and that's going to ultimately hinder you, because the whole time, afterwards, it was just like a bunch of justifications of why that's not true, why this, why that, and really just came down to his friends.
Yeah.
He was hanging around friends that weren't where he wanted to be, and they were keeping him stuck where he was, so he couldn't get to where he wanted to go. and he was having a hard time hearing how the thing he had to do was ditch those friends. Unfortunately, they're not going to be where you want to be in 3 years, so you have to get around people who are, or are at least trying to aspire to be there as well. And it might hurt because some of them are your lifetime friends for a long time from childhood. Some of them are also family members. But at the same time, like, dude, I love my family and friends since I've grown up who've been friends with me at certain times in my life. Most of them to this day I still don't talk to. I mean, I haven't talked to them in forever, right?
Yeah.
Not because I'm not friends with them or would never, if I see them on a street, I wouldn't say, yo, what's up, dude? It's because the friends I have now are exactly where I need to be in my journey right now. It's just a different level. So you almost have, again, so going back to the point earlier, it's like you have to be able to hear the advice and don't argue with it if you want the goal. If you just want to complain, then that'll be the path you choose, right?
Yeah.
But
So I think there's like a kind of a dark side to that too. And this is something that I have struggled with, and something that kind of hit me is when I was like first getting started, right? When you first get started, you're just looking for something, right? So you look up on social media and it's like, oh, like, you know, this person has this person has that. And it's like, you look up to those people. So for me, and just you sharing kind of, just reminded me of it or helped me think of it in this way, where I was looking up to people and like aspiring to be like them, and they weren't the right people.
Yeah.
So what happened is I was looking up to those people, and then I found out who they really were, and I was like, man, like, you know, okay, yes, they're financially more set than me, but they're not where I want to be physically, or maybe I'm further past them than they are physically. I'm further past them in my walk and in my faith, and you know, my diet's healthier than them, you know. So it's like, okay, so I looked up to all these people, and it's like I'm further along than they are in areas that are important to me, and it's like, okay, yeah, they're crushing it here, but they're struggling with their relationships, they're struggling with their diets, they're struggling with their working out, they're struggling with all this other stuff. And I'm like, oh, well, like, I'm doing a lot better than them in all these areas. So now it's like, man, I don't look up to them. So, you know, in the same way that I did before. And so what they're saying doesn't carry as much weight. And ultimately, like, that inflated my pride and my ego, and that set me back. And I think taking a trip to Dubai and traveling more really humbled me. And
it always comes back to Dubai.
Yeah. It was just because, like, I was around much higher level people. And like, there are a few people that I would actually consider high level. When I met Brooke in Dubai, ecom dude, him and David, I didn't realize, you don't really realize the level people are on social media until you meet them in person. So I met him in person. I was like, wow. The discipline that he just carried, like, you can just see it and feel it, and like, just like, even like the little stuff, like the pace and speed at which they walk and execute things and like move, it's like, wow. So there's that.
Urgency.
And then urgency, exactly. And but it was also like, he's fit, he goes to the gym, he watches what he eats, you know, he has a successful relationship, he has a successful faith, very successful in business. So I was like, wow. And I just like looked up to all those things. And then I did a podcast with Umar, and like, again, you know, watches what he eats, you know, works out, relationships, you know, faith, you know. And even for him, it's like, for me, it's like, I'm a Christian, for him, he's a Muslim, but even that, I deeply respect that because of the discipline and, you know, what goes into that on his side. And like, we both have this very mutual respect for each other because we're both very involved in our own faith, and like, obviously financially he's crushing it. So I was actually around people that I looked up to in all categories of life, and it just dropped my ego, because like, I'm really not where I want to be. And I would consider you as one of those people as well, because it's like, you spend time optimizing yourself, your body, you have a successful relationship with your wife. I think for me, when I see an entrepreneur that's crushing it financially, but also has a balance in other areas, that's for me when it's like, okay, like, you know, you're based in your faith, you're based in your relationships, you're based in your treating yourself, your health and your wellness, you're based in your business. For me, when it's like, there's like these 5 boxes checked, then it's like, okay, I'm actually looking up to this person.
Because what you said earlier is so true, dude. It's like, I realize this as well. It's like, everyone talks about, you got to find a mentor, you got to find a mentor, you got to find a mentor. And it's like, that's so true. You do, when you said at your certain stage of your life where you just need to find someone who has something that you want. Whether it's money, whether it's the lifestyle, whatever, right? Because you'll learn probably what they're the best at in that certain thing. Probably making money, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're good in their relationships or their faith, like you said, or just with their family. Like they probably have a dark past or whatever.
Real quick, usually people sacrifice all that for one thing.
Yes. And so I realized this as well, where I was like, my first mentor obviously was Dean Graziosi, and like but before I met Dean, I was already like on a journey where I knew I needed to find a mentor. And I was like preparing for somebody for 2 years, just mentally, like how I had this in the back of my head. I needed to find somebody, reading books and all this stuff. But then you get to a point where it's like, yeah, nobody's perfect. The reality is nobody's perfect. So what you're saying is so true, because you want to get around people that have at least everything as optimized as possible. But again, nobody's perfect, because just because someone knows how to make money doesn't mean they're the best with their relationships with their wife, or that maybe they've been divorced, 3, 4, or 5 times, right?
But I think it's also the mindset of that person too, where they realize I'm not the best, but I realize I'm on a journey and I'm working really hard at this journey.
Yeah.
And you can tell when they're like that, right? Because it's that balance of, it's like, oh, like, they're not like, oh, I'm the man, but they're also like, it's like this pride. It's like this balance of pride and humility, where it's like they know they're crushing it, but they know that they're not the best.
Yeah, they still have a sense of like, man, I can still do better. I can still work harder. There's people out there that still need my help, right? And I think it's important to have different mentors for different areas of your life too. Like for me, it was like, okay, Dean, I learned everything about marketing from Dean, right? Great, he's the best at marketing for me. I'm going to learn from him. So I did that for 3 years, and I used whatever we did working for him with our clients now. But it's like, okay, for sales, Cold Gordon's really good. Grant Cardone helped me out a lot as well, door-to-door sales when I was doing that, cold calling. And then I have, Paul Check and Nadi Aguilar and Ben Greenfield for health and fitness, right? Because Paul Check is 60 years old. I think he's like 63, 64 now, and he's jacked, still moving well. He's still working out, lifting heavy weights. He looks like someone I would want to look like when I'm 60 years old. So like he's a gold standard of like someone for like health, right?
For sure.
So I think it's important to like, and then for dating relationships, it was like, okay, well, my grandparents on my dad's side were, they were married for 60 plus years, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's like they had, a bunch of kids. And they died together, right? So it's like, wow, that's something that I look up to as like from a relationship standpoint. Like that's what I want to have, right? Like a solid marriage, committed, and like they're together to the very end. So yeah, I think it's also important to, like, when you do have a mentor, right? Be aware of the flaws, but don't use that against like as a bad thing. It's like, okay, yeah, not everybody's perfect, but I'm gonna take the good and then see if I can get help with the other stuff from other people that have what I want.
Exactly. It's just more of understanding. Okay, this is where they're at. And I don't like where they're at here, but I love where they're at here. So I'm going to learn from this. If they say stuff about this, I'm probably going to take it with a grain of salt, because they probably don't really know what they're talking about. Otherwise, it'd be evident in their own life, right? And I think the biggest thing is, like, before, I would look up to people based on what they would say. Now I look up to people based on what they do. And their actions really paint a much more vivid picture of where they really are and who they really are, and whether or not they're worthy of, a certain level of respect and being followed. Obviously, everyone's worthy of some level of respect, but as far as like following them as a mentor in certain areas or all areas, or, the amount of areas in their life.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's so true, man.
And, kind of just to piggyback off of that, like, I want to crush it in all these areas because I want to be that mentor to my kids, and I want them to look up to me in all those areas. Oh, dad has such a great relationship with mom. Oh, dad is crushing it in business. Oh, dad treats
works
people
out every
well.
Single day.
Yeah, dad, works out every day.
Jacked.
Dad's consistent.
Yeah.
Dad, journals every day. Dad doesn't
people
drink.
Look up to dad in the community. They always come up to us and talk to us, and they treat us well.
Exactly.
He knows everybody.
Everyone likes his reputation.
You want to be a leader. Yeah,
exactly.
It's becoming the best version of yourself so that you can be the person that you've always wanted, which is why you look up to, which is why you're never satisfied too.
Yeah, and I want to set that bar and that standard extremely high for my kids, because that's what they deserve. Ultimately, my thinking is like, I'm going through everything I'm going through now and learning all that I am now, so that I can share that wisdom with my kids, and because I'm only going to make it so far in life, but I want them to make it further.
Yep.
So in order for me to do that, I have to push as hard as I can and go as far as I can, and then I have to take everything that I learned and say, when I have kids, maybe it's at 25, 30, whatever it is, right? I have to take everything that I've learned in those 30 years and try to squeeze it into them in 12 to 15, so that they're getting ahead by that much.
Yeah, I was listening to something the other day. It was like I don't know what I was listening to, but it was like most parents don't even read how to like raise kids. Like they don't read a book about how to raise kids, which is kind of crazy if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you just expect to be able to raise like gold standard kids out of nowhere when you haven't learned anything about how to raise kids in your entire life, right? Like, and considering most families nowadays, like even including mine, like, you know, come from a split family household where your parents get divorced early on, and so you kind of have a little bit of a not the best example either when it comes to raising kids. So it's like, how do you expect to learn how to do that unless you actually take the time to learn and study and get coaching, get help, get support, which is very, very important because we're trying to be the examples,
exactly,
you know, for our kids too.
Yeah, for me, I study my pastor because his kids are. I've never seen kids so well behaved.
Wow.
Like, but it's like in such a good way too. Like they're well behaved. Like for me, like I cannot stand when kids just cry all the time. Like there's no reason for it. They're doing it for attention. So there's like a disconnect between their parents and their kids in some sort of way, right? And so with them, they're just like well behaved. They're just like they want to be around their dad. They want to be around their mom. You know, they're not crying all. I don't think I've ever seen them cry. And I'm not saying crying is bad. I'm just saying that like, you know, they should not be 5 years old and crying all the time because they want attention or they need something. They should be able to communicate, and they should have learned from an example of, you know, their dad or their mom of like what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
Well, I think that's also important too, because like it comes back to like when, like you said, raising them from the very beginning. And I think that's why for me, dude, when my kids get here, like the first emphasis I'm gonna have with them is like breath work.
Yeah.
Like being able to breathe, because when you can take full deep breaths, right, in through your nose, out through your mouth, and really calm your mind and go back to your breath and presence, like a lot of the stuff that's in your head, whether it's good, bad, you know, ugly, whatever, or even just stuff that ticks you off, goes away. Because you're just tapped into you're tapped into the universe, you're tapped into your breath. And so it's like kids, I don't think, are taught how to breathe from the very beginning. So like the 5-year-old you're talking about from the pastor's kids, like maybe they have some sort of presence, probably in sort of prayer, right, for this family, right, where they teach their kids, whenever you get upset, angry, or you want to react or lash out, like remember to just go talk to God, the Lord, you know, Jesus, whatever. It's like go back to something. Go back to your presence. Go back to your mind. Calm that stuff. So for me, it's going to be very much breath work and like teaching them how to not react, which comes from the breath work.
Because you have to realize that like everyone has like a default like sin nature, like programming of like this is going to be the instinct or habitual reaction to X or Y, right? So in order to break that, it has to be one through the showcase of your actions, right? Whenever X or Y happens to you, what is your response? Because your kids are going to follow what your response is, not necessarily what you say. But I think it's your response paired with what you say, and they both have to be parallel. And it's like, this is, you know, you're telling your kids, you're teaching them, okay, this is what's acceptable, this is what's not. And then it's you, when that happens to you, that, you know, okay, this is what's acceptable, this is what's not. And you just showing that. Because, like, they're going to learn by example and learn from watching you.
This convo's firing me up, dude, because it's like, bro, this just challenges us even more than what we're doing now to level up even faster, quicker, and farther. Because it's like, this is a whole battle in itself. Because I was talking to my mom literally about this last night, because we were watching a Patrick Bet-David podcast episode, and he was talking about how right now in this world, there is an attack on our kids from a lot of ideologies and like lifestyles that are being pushed through mainstream media and social media like TikTok, where it's teaching these kids nowadays that it's okay to do these, you know, certain things when it comes to your sexuality, and this is normalized, where it's, you know, a lot of it comes from just some sort of agenda that just I don't agree with at all.
Shoved down the throat,
It's shoved down your throat, and it's becoming normalized, and it's like, what's the agenda here, right? And then Patrick was talking about this on his podcast. It's like to disconnect the kids from the parents. Like, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy, right? Because there's somebody when they come home from school, but when they go to home, they're almost a completely different person, because they're being told they can be called whatever they want to be called. They can choose. They can become, you know, he, she, whatever the case may be. And it's like, that's crazy, because they're living two different lives, and it's almost creating this divide between the families and the kids. And so that podcast was huge last night, because I was talking to my mom about it, because we were just sitting there and we were like, man, she thought, you know, it was hard to raise us back then. And obviously it's never easy to raise kids, obviously, because that's just the whole thing. There's probably parents maybe somehow watching this and they're like, oh, well, you don't understand. Like, I work 2 jobs. And it's like, I understand that, right? Which is why I'm talking about how it's even more important for someone like Cameron and myself to just do so much harder, so much more, and go so much farther, because I want to have the ability
So I'm making the sacrifice now.
Making the sacrifice now, so that way I can choose to put my kids in a private school, because
Correct.
I don't want them to be shoved down their throat with this ideology to where they are at risk of being programmed into something that I don't personally believe in or want my kids to experience. So
For sure.
yeah, it's firing me up, man. Because
For me, it's like, bro, like my kids are not going to school. Like they are, I was homeschooled from second grade to high school until I dropped out. Which I basically just like talked to my parents who just like, look, I don't want like a degree, like I don't want, or I don't want.
So homeschool
diploma.
meaning your mom was
Yeah.
teaching. Okay,
my mom was teaching. So my mom taught me from like second grade until like probably like fifth or sixth grade. But the most important thing is she taught me how to learn.
Yeah.
So then it wasn't like, oh, she's teaching me in high school. Like she would like, it was more of like coaching me though. It was like, hey, what are you interested in? Now that you know how to learn, let's go learn about what you're interested in.
Wow, that's huge, dude.
I was like, that's a huge takeaway for me. So I'm like, yeah, my kids are not going to school. And then everyone's like, oh, like, like most people can't really tell that I'm homeschooled because I'm not like socially awkward.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's
like,
when you said it, like, immediate reaction was like, oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people that are homeschooled are socially awkward. So for me, I lost because I was socially awkward at first, and I lost that when, and obviously a good way, when I was a part of church to a degree, and I wasn't as much as like I am now. And then also I was in a car dealership. So I was the videographer in a car dealership. So I was in the environment of salesmen, which for my kids, they are not going to be in school. So they're not going to have the social environment from school, which some people don't understand. But they're going to get that social environment from a church setting.
Just like you did, right?
Yeah.
Just in a different format, right?
Correct.
Yeah, because
ultimately it's like I just want them to be in a better environment. Like they're still going to get their social skills. They just need to be in a better environment to get them.
Yeah, and think about the luxury that your mom had too, being able to raise her kids and teach them from the very beginning how to learn, and just knowing, and your dad probably too, just knowing that like, man, like my kids are, they're being taught by their mother, who I love, right? And it's like that's a beautiful picture, bro.
It is, and like it's just for me, it's like I'm so thankful and I'm so blessed because my parents did teach me how to learn, and it's something that I do take for granted sometimes. And it's like, it might sound crazy, like, oh, like learning how to learn, like what? Like it sounds wild, but it's like, it's true. Like, and you can tell which people don't have that ability and which people do, because it's like, for me, I don't go around asking stupid questions all the time, or like, questions that require common sense. It's like, I was taught how to use the tools at my disposal. I was taught, okay, if you have a question, you can go to Google. Oh, if you don't know how to do something, go to YouTube. Like, and now we have AI, we have open AI. Like, there's literally not a question that you could ask that cannot be answered. So it's like, I think a lot of people will like ask, like people say, oh, there's no such thing as dumb questions. Like, yeah, there are. Like, there's definitely such thing as dumb questions, because you can ask a question that can easily be answered by Google. And I've had to do this with some of my friends where they'll ask me a dumb question, and it's not because the question itself is dumb, it's because they're asking me when they could ask Google and get the question half the time.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll take their question,
Yeah.
I'll screen record myself putting it into Google
And
and
send
getting
it to
their
them?
search result and send it back to them.
Yeah, I'm laughing because like even with like being back with my parents for the last 2 weeks because of the mold situation, it was like we'll sometimes be like talking about, I thought it was this. No, I'm pretty sure it was this, and it's like a whole minute of just going back and forth of like, no, I think it's this, and it's like, oh, there's my phone that I'm already on as I'm having the conversation with my parents and trying to figure it out, that I'm not even searching for the answer right there. But it's like, yeah, we could just literally search it for it, but we don't sometimes, and it's like, that's kind of dumb.
Yeah, and I think, what I've come to realize is like it's also come to a disadvantage too, because like sometimes like I don't want to ask for help when I should ask for help. So there is like a time where it's like, okay, what I'm asking isn't stupid, but I need to ask it, but I don't. And asking for wisdom is different than asking like a dumb question.
Yeah, well, the only way you get wisdom too, from what I've learned, is like you actually have to do the thing,
correct,
and experience it for yourself to gain the wisdom, right?
Correct. Because like, for example, like you are great with YouTube ads. I could be like, hey, Brian, like, how do I open a YouTube ads account? Or it's like, you could be like, dude, like, go watch a video on that.
There's hundreds of videos on YouTube, Cameron.
But if I were to come and say like, yo, Brian, like, this is my YouTube ad currently, and I'm unsure about this hook and I'm unsure about the call to action. Do you mind watching the video and giving me your feedback based on your experience on how this can be improved? That's not something I can just Google.
Yeah.
Like, even with AI, where it's that I can't just go ask AI that question either. Like, that's something where having someone that's in the industry and actually doing it, that's not a stupid question. That's a question that only someone like you would be able to answer.
Yeah, and it's also providing enough context too when you ask the question to someone when you're finally ready to ask it, because this is something that I'm working on, realizing that I have to teach people how to ask good questions inside of our mastermind, because it's like there's no context, there's no numbers, there's no data, there is nothing that I have to go off of based off what you're just saying. The ads aren't working, and I'm not sure why. There's no leads, and I'm really just confused on what I should do. And it's like, I don't know what you're doing right now, because you didn't tell me how much you spent, what these specific metrics are that we tell you to measure, as well as what the results are on the back end, what these are, how long you've been running the ads for, right? How many ads you've tested, all of this stuff that I need to be able to give you a concrete answer. And now I'm gonna have to take 20 minutes to even figure that out, because you didn't have the time to just ask it in the post, right?
Once you realize the mindset of successful people, and the more successful they are, you realize that they enjoy answering good questions. So if you can bring the data to them in a way where it's like they're gonna enjoy answering it, then like there's nothing wrong with that, right? So if I come to you, it's like, hey, Brian, here's my ad. I spent $500 on it. I've only gotten one conversion. I think my hook is bad. Like, could you check out my hook? The call to action might be struggling too. Like, you know, and you come with as much information as possible so that it becomes enjoyable for them to answer. Because like for me, it's like, you know, I've had someone, you know, one of my students, he got on the call with me and he's like, hey, Cam, like, basically what I'm trying to say is like, you need to realize that the person's time is valuable. And once you realize that their time is valuable, and if you can give it to them in the most concise way possible, they're probably going to enjoy answering it, because it's going to be a higher level question, and it's going to be like, oh, they're like, oh, well, he's coming to me with this question because he knows only I can answer it. So then it becomes enjoyable. Like, one of my students got on the phone with me, and I was like super honored by this question, because he was like, hey, Cam, like, I'm at a splitting way in my life. I don't know if I should, you know, take a break from trading and go get this job that's going to pay me twice as much, or keep focusing on my trading. I just got my first payout and, you know, stay where I am. And I'm like, this is so cool. Like, you know, this is not something that you can go Google. It's not something you can go ask AI. This is something that, you know, you need experience with. So I was like, cool, because I was able to break it down. I'm like, I didn't say like, oh, do this or do that, but I was like, here, this is my experience. And it's like, and that's ultimately what he's coming for, is he's like, you know, I know that you've gone through this. What would you recommend me to do? Because I don't know what to do. And it's like an advanced question that requires wisdom.
Yeah, so he really took the time to obviously go through it and then give you the context, and then you were at a point to where you had the wisdom and you're like, oh, this is a fun question.
Yeah, I was like, this is so cool. I enjoy this. He's like, oh, dude, like, sorry. I'm like, dude, don't apologize. I love I love having this conversation with you, because it's not like, oh,
how
like,
do you trade?
how do I open a brokerage account? Like, dude, I don't know. Go look it up.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know what brokerage you're using. I don't really care. Like,
what brokerage do you want to use?
Yeah, if you're gonna be like, hey, like, I'm at a standstill. Like, I've looked at all these. I don't know which one's best. Which one do you recommend? I don't really know what to look for, because, like, yeah, that information is hard to come by. That's one thing. But it's like, if it's, how do I open a brokerage with TD Ameritrade? Dude, come on. Go look it up.
Yeah. Go look it up.
So
asking good questions.
The one thing that I want to wrap this up with is, I think we've been going a little over an hour, but
nice.
I want to wrap this up with what, for you, how would you implement a system for discipline and accountability into your life? How would you recommend someone else do that into theirs? Because I know for me, that's something that I had like a 3-month period where like I was just struggling with it, and I realized that I need more external accountability, and I need to be, in order to be more disciplined with my time, basically in my mornings. So for you, how have you seen success in your life there, and how would you recommend someone else to go start doing that?
Yeah, so specifically when it comes to just being able to like do what you're gonna say, like that's the most important thing, right? Because when you wake up in the morning and you're not doing the things you said you're gonna do, that's already eating at yourself, right? Like you're already hating yourself for that.
Let me pause you right there, because I want to take this opportunity. Brian, high level person, crushing it. I asked the same question to Umar, and they both said the exact same response. He didn't know what Umar was going to say. Umar didn't know what he was going to say. So take what he just said, say it again, and then keep going, because that was very valuable.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes back to like realizing that you're not doing what you say you're going to do, and therefore you don't love yourself. And that sucks.
Yeah.
Because you say you want to do something, and then you don't do it. And then you wake up, and you're not doing it, and then you just start hating yourself. And you start going down a negative spiral of, I should be doing this, my life sucks, blah, blah, blah. It's just, I've experienced this so much in my life. That's why I'm confident when I say that it really just comes back to doing what you say you're going to do and just sticking to your fucking word. And that's really what it is. So like all of the systems, the processes, the tools, all that stuff like we've been talking about can help, but it's not the root issue. You got to solve it from the root issue. So if you're not getting work done, you're not waking up early on time, you're not doing what you say you want to do, whether it's waking up at 4 a.m. and writing for 3 hours of content, or posting 1 YouTube video a week, or meditating, journaling, sauna, you're just not making time to do it. You're not making time to do it because you're not making time to schedule it on when you're going to be doing it, and when the time comes to when you're supposed to be doing it, you're not doing it. That's literally it. So if you can just learn, and if you can just learn that, and you just become aware of the fact that, oh, it's actually simple. I just need to schedule it on my day, whether it's writing it in a journal, whether it's putting it on a war map online, whether it's I don't know, whatever it is, just do something where you have a schedule going into the next day, and then when the time comes to do it, you just do it. That's like the easiest way, and it kind of sounds stupid, but that's just the truth.
It is simple.
Yeah, it's simple because it's simple not to do. It's like, man, for things to change, you have to change.
Yeah.
Right? For things to get better, you have to get better, right? Like, that's really it. So if you want to achieve something that most people can't, you have to become somebody that most people aren't. That's just the reality about it.
Yeah.
So most people aren't disciplined. Most people aren't waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Most people aren't writing their trades down in their journal, right? So they're not making the money that they want, like Umar is, right?
Yeah.
So we have to become the person who's going to be worthy of doing it. Again, it just comes back to Jim Rohn, dude. Jim Rohn, the GOAT of OG personal development, bro. Like, you just gotta become better. And like, don't wish for. I forget the quote. I'm gonna butcher it, but it's basically like, don't wish for more skills. Wish for more wisdom.
Yeah.
Don't wish for more.
I mean, you even look at Solomon, who is the wisest person to walk the earth, also the richest person to walk the earth as well, because of that wisdom. I don't know what his net worth was. I think it was over $2 trillion translated to what it is now, which is insane. No single person has a net worth of that amount.
Yeah.
I think there are companies and families that have that, but not a single person. But where I was going with that is a few takeaways from this that I've gotten from you, I've gotten from Umar. After talking to you, I've realized, the mental level that you're at is far beyond most people, which is incredible and, definitely very inspirational to me. But journal, it's not you have to journal every day, but start journaling, start today, start now, write something down, and get your thoughts out, get your headspace out onto paper, and try to be more consistent with that. That's something that I need to do, something that I'm going to do. I started with my trading, and now I realize that needs to bleed over into my life as well. Okay, I'm journaling what went well and what didn't in my trading. Why would I not do the same in my life, right? Because what gets measured gets fixed. That's something that the ex-CEO of Restoration Hardware, which is a multi-billion-dollar company, shared with me. So obviously, he knew what he was doing. He was a COO. So what gets measured gets fixed. You have to be consistent in whatever you want to see results in.
And it also shows up to the whole overall topic of what we discussed today. Everything we discussed isn't just about business. I want to make that very clear. Like, it shows up in every area of your life, with your relationships, with your friendships, with your family. It's everything. So like, if you're not making time to schedule activities for me and my wife to do to make sure that she's getting her cup filled up with my love, right? Then I'm not serving her in a way that I want to be served as a husband either. So it's like, I'm not making time to stay disciplined to scheduling my days with her as well, so that she can have the quality time that she deserves, right?
Yeah.
Or even with your friends, right? If you haven't seen a friend that you've been wanting to see for a month and you just keep putting off, it's like, well, if you haven't seen them and you're upset you haven't seen them, it's your fault, right? Because you just haven't taken the time to do the same thing, right? Or if you're not happy with yourself and you're wondering how come you're just not at the place where you want to be, it's probably because you're not journaling or taking time to reflect on what you've been doing right, what you've been doing wrong, and really having a hard conversation about it with yourself, so that you can change the habits, the routines, the disciplines, the actions that you're doing to get different results.
Yeah, exactly. Because ultimately, in your relationships, what gets measured gets fixed.
Yes.
In your business, what gets measured gets
Yes.
fixed. In your friendships, what gets measured gets fixed. In your diet and fitness, what gets measured gets fixed. And same with your relationship, like with God.
Yeah.
Like what gets measured gets fixed. And if you're not measuring it, it's not going to get fixed.
I think I remember this quote, and we'll probably end on this, right? It's like the business is just a gateway drug to personal development.
Yeah,
It's
I love that. I love that.
It's just a gateway drug to personal development. This is the hardest and the most fulfilling, challenging, and rewarding game you could ever embark on, because I actually posted this on my Instagram story today. Someone tweeted it, and it was like, the moment I realized that life was just like creating my own character in a video game, and I had to do side quests, achieve missions, and complete all these things to level up my character. That's when I realized that I'm approaching it totally differently now, because it's not a challenge, it's not a struggle. It's a game that I can win, and it's a game that anybody can win if they just want to try.
I love that. That's a perfect way to go out.
Hell yeah.
Brian, appreciate you jumping on.
Thank you, bro.
Great conversation. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Enjoy your travels, and we'll see you back here in Miami.
Yeah, see you in 90 days, bro.
Pretty